Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're here today. We've had a lot going on. I just got back in town here in Las Vegas. I've been in Belgium for about 3 weeks, and we did an incredible seminar over there. It just flowed very magically. So I'll be posting some pictures of that coming up on Facebook and Instagram here pretty soon, but I have to get permission from people first. So anyway, we just had an absolutely incredible time. The group started to do some very interesting things there, and they kind of in the channels, because we did like 2 channels every day, and then the week before that I did a speaking engagement at a healing center, and all the channels started talking about one thing in particular. Now they're starting to bring the larger picture together, which I hope to cover a little bit today. We will have somewhat of a limited time today to cover it, but yesterday we did a Lightmaster course, and the entire course was in channel talking about this, what we're going to be talking about the stargates that are opening and what that is. Now, to me, that was very strange, very difficult. I've seen the movie about stargates. I've seen some of the science fiction about stargates and so forth to be able to do that. So I actually had to look up the word. So I know exactly what we're talking about. But they do want to talk about this because there are some fascinating things that are taking place that are going to affect all of us very soon. So we wanted to bring that to your attention and let you know that we're going to be talking about that today. And Lightmasters, I hope we give you even a little bit more information. I never quite know what it's going to be about, but I do know that we have a lot going on with that process here today. So welcome, everyone. We're also going to be interviewing Kathy Moran. She's written an incredible book, part of our team for years and years and years. She's written an incredible book about the magic of trees. So we'll have her in for just a few minutes to be able to interview her a little bit later. But I wanted to get going right away. I hope you're all having a wonderful beginning of the summer, except for those of you in Australia. You're the opposite. You're going into winter and the lower hemispheres to be able to do that. But welcome today. We're so honored to have you with us and to be part of this family of light. Also, I will tell you, things are changing here. We're going to be offering some very unusual things coming up. One of them that we're going to be offering is simply we're dusting off the park bench. That's all I'm going to tell you, but watch for the park bench. It's going to be coming in July. We'll talk more about that coming up, but I'm very much looking forward to the park bench series that we're going to be doing with that. So welcome today. Glad you're here. I see that Kathy's here and all set up. So anyway, we'll get back to that in just a few minutes. Right away, I want to get going with Meg and bring her segment in because she's got an incredible piece as well today. So let's start with Meg and we'll go right through. Asbab, everybody. Thank you for taking your power and being here.
Hi, everybody. So nice to be back with you this month of May. Let's jump into it. So what I want to talk to you about this month is this conditioning that so many of us have. Now, men and women both have this, but it is predominant in women. This conditioning of overdoing, right? You've heard me speak in the past about programming and how programming occurs in our mind. It's stored in the subconscious mind. And it comes from having heightened emotional incidences, what we call critical incidences in the past, where we experienced some kind of hurt or emotional pain. And our subconscious mind will take a snapshot of that because its job is to govern our body, to keep us safe, to move us towards pleasure. And so this dominant memory becomes programming in the mind that says, stay away from that. We don't want to experience that again. And then we start to develop strategies, coping mechanisms. Our brains are brilliant. We're very smart as humans. Might not seem that way all the time. It might not seem that way internally. And I don't say that sarcastically. I really mean if you ask yourself, would you consider yourself intelligent? Would you consider yourself valuable? Would you consider yourself successful or worthy? We have the tendency, particularly women, to look at others and gauge our success in comparison to theirs. Yet, if we actually look, we have thousands of memories and experiences that are positive, that are peaceful, that are pleasant. Whether you were only 3 or 4 and you were just daydreaming up looking at the clouds and you were happy and you felt free. But we don't have those on quick recall. And that's because those highly emotionalized incidences I was just speaking about, they stay dominant in our mind to protect us. So we then start to walk through life with all of these coping mechanisms in place, and that starts to look like self-sabotage. So what's our conditioning? What do? We don't see ourselves as successful. We don't see, or we see ourselves as, we're doing all right. Be humble, right? All the conditioning women have been taught to live with too, over generations. Don't be too boastful, don't be too loud, don't be too proud, don't speak about yourself. It doesn't look good, it's not nice, it's not like ladylike behavior. On and on it goes. There's these standards that you can't possibly meet. You're not enough, you're too much. You're too loud, you're too quiet. So we learn that our value comes from the opinion of others. So we learn the coping mechanism of overdoing. And so we overdo and we overdo and we overdo, underneath subliminally looking for thank you, appreciation, love, validation, raises, and so forth. But that is not an energy match to this masculine energy environment that we live in on this planet. So that leads quickly to exhaustion and burnout and resentment and this chronic fatigue, and can further lead to physical diagnosis. But I'm talking specifically about emotions right now. And so we get all tangled up in believing now that these feelings that we're having are someone else's fault. It's a circumstance. It's because this job is going this way, or this partner thinks this about me, or my parents raised me this way, or. And the moment we start to say because, it's like this because, I feel this way because, we know we've picked up that old pain and we're trying to protect ourselves from it. And we just keep getting stuck in this loop of overdo in hopes to receive the validation that we belong, that we matter, that we're loved, that we're important, that we're smart, that we're kind, that we're needed. And instead, we don't fill that void. We were never taught to learn to garner that from the inside. It has to be performance-based. It has to come from an outside source. So we never learn how to deal with that root programming, that negative belief that came decades ago, back when we were children. And we took on this identity of I'm not good enough, or I don't matter, or I'm not safe, or I'm not smart. And we just learn to be driven. Or we do and do and do and do and do until we're done, literally. So we're exhausted and we just can't do it. And we're seeing these numbers rise in our youth, particularly females. It's 3-to-1 female depression. Students are saying, what's the point? What's the point? The world's always at war. And so it can be playing out in all ages. Now, this happens with men too, but again, I'm speaking predominantly to women here because the numbers are, they're on the rise with women of all ages. Women in middle age now are going through this phase of, what's my purpose? I have an empty nest. It hasn't been about me. I don't even know who I am right now. What's it supposed to be for me? What's my purpose? How am I contributing? How does this matter? Does this matter? Look at the world. Am I making a difference? Am I capable? And I'm hearing and seeing this over and over and over from women. So, for example, I worked with a client that never felt she was successful enough. She came to me to feel more successful in her business. And she was working, there was no more hours that she could put in a day. She was working crazy amounts of hours over giving to her clients when we started to really peel back the layers and look at it. And the clients, not all of them were really valuing all the extra that she was doing because they weren't even aware all the extra work she was doing. And then she would start to feel resentful of those clients that they weren't appreciating her. So then she kept feeling like, why am I doing this? Questioning, do I want to be doing this? I don't feel successful at this. So she came to me to improve all of this, to improve her business. But really, you see underneath it's self-esteem. And over the course of a few months of working together, she started to see the way that her clients were behaving were the perfect match to her beliefs of not feeling successful enough. Right? We start to look at the energy conversation. And it's such a setup. But it's not a setup because we deserve treatment of a certain way from others. It's a setup that we're still trying to heal that root origin belief. So we're drawing in people, places, and things that match that dominant programming so that we can look at it, so that we can investigate it, that we can become aware of it. But we weren't taught that. We were taught to compare ourselves. We were taught to compete in school. We were taught to compete in sports. We weren't taught that the outcome of those things were not tied to our personal worth. We weren't taught that. This is so big, and it's the root of so many issues in our lives. Before we develop the coping mechanisms, wouldn't it be nice to know that your personal worth had nothing to do with anybody else or your performance in any area of your life? Your belonging is already intrinsically yours. You take it everywhere you go. But we didn't learn this. So because we have this inner conflict, we're incongruent with this, we believe that our worth and our value comes as a result of other people's opinions of us. And now we're just in this never-ending cycle of I have to overdo, and if someone else doesn't pick up on it, if they're not psychic enough, if they don't recognize it, if they're not praising us all the time, then we are constantly feeling like, what am I doing this for? And it's inherently incorrect right from the root. So one thing we need to really learn is that our worth is not tied up in any outside circumstance whatsoever. Because if it's tied up to how our partner feels about us, how our boss feels about us, how our friends feel about us, how our teams feel about us, it's doomed to fail. Because the biggest secret is everybody else is far too busy wondering if they fit in and if they're good enough. They're too busy worrying about that to make sure that you feel like you do. If that can really land, that clarity that everybody else is trying to figure that out for themselves, they're never going to be able to meet that need for you. That is your job to meet that need. Then life starts to change. The moment my client really started to understand her patterns and reframe them and anchor them in, she started to feel better. She started to meet those needs for herself. We started to strategize ways that this made sense for her. And then the way that she was offering things with her clients. So after integrating all of this, her business started to change. Her client list, interestingly enough, started to change. Some of her regular clients dropped off. New clients came in that were a better match. And some of her regular clients that did stay, their behavior changed. Now, why? Why did the client's behavior change? Isn't that interesting? Did they change? Or did the client just begin perceiving them differently? Right? Did my client just start perceiving her regular clients differently from the changes and the shifts that were taking place within her? When we learn to meet our own personal needs, our own emotional needs, and not demand them subconsciously. So here it's subconsciously. We don't know we're doing this. It's really unconscious. It's nuanced. It's subtle. Subconscious, subtle. When we stop demanding that subconsciously from others, it sets us free. And it sets others free too. We are all energetically connected. So this pull on energy disappears. When you start meeting your own emotional needs, subconsciously, you're no longer transmitting, I need this from you. And that changes things in our environment. It starts to change the reality that we live in, our perceptions of the reality that we live in, and the manifestations of the reality that we live in. We start to show up focused. We start to show up happier. We start to naturally shift into who we were always meant to be, because it's never contingent on others. And when others don't feel that energy pull subconsciously, again, all unconscious, that if they don't feel that expectation from us, that feels like our focus is on them and their needs now. So for my client, that started to feel like I'm just focusing on what they've hired me to do. And I'm meeting my own emotional needs. So I no longer have this subliminally going on in this conversation. And so I can just be very present, fully present and aware for them. And they started to change their behavior as a result of receiving that, all unconsciously. It's quite extraordinary when you think about it. We think our conversations are just like this. It's what we see, it's what we feel, it's what we hear. But it's more than that. There is a whole energy conversation taking place at a deeper level that our brains take micro impressions all the time. And so we are receiving information at a much deeper intrinsic level than we're aware of. And so if you hear that, right, that our ability to show up focused on other people because our self-esteem is intact, if we can do that, that's a game changer in business. There's a deep nuance there. When you can learn to be the one in the room that can show up holding your own happiness, holding your own success, holding your own gratitude, your own value, your own wisdom, and just listen to what others are hiring you for, or what your friends are saying, or what your partner is sharing about their day, then you are showing up for them. And that makes everyone feel heard, feel respected, feel acknowledged. And the work goes much better. And they naturally appreciate you. They naturally love you. They naturally want to be with you. You get all the things that you want, but not because somebody had to change in order to give them to you. It's a whole different energy dynamic when you look after you, and then you can be very present for other people. This is not the normal on the planet right now. This works in relationships, in team leadership, with colleagues, as an entrepreneur or a teacher, in business, in success. It works in every relationship that you have. We can never meet a need outside of ourselves, ever. It's always internal, and it's always what we're believing about whatever is upsetting us that's in the way. That's the self-investigative work. Not what others are doing. That might be the trigger point. That might be the catalyst. Nobody had perfect parents. Maybe you did, but maybe you got bullied at school. Everybody has critical incidences from their past. Everybody has programming. There is no one that escapes programming because we are wide open subconscious mind until we're 7. Everybody's had experiences. And then from 7 on, there's a part of our brain that starts to develop, that adult rational reasoning mind. We start to be able to differentiate ourselves in time and space. Then subconscious access starts to become limited. We start to perceive data. And so that changes. But up until 7, we're wide open programming. So we're learning how to be a human. We're learning how to walk and talk and think and respond. And we're taking in everything that everyone around us, particularly our caregivers, our authority figures, our parents. And so we learn modeling. We have programming. And from that point forward, we don't learn in school that our value is something that we need to nurture and garner, and that it's already there. It's not based on your performance. It's not based on how you look. It's not based on what size you are. It's not based on any of those things. But that's what we're brought up believing. So if we can understand that people around us are only doing what they're doing because we're believing what we're believing, that can be a game changer in life. That's deep inner work. That's the kind of work that I'm actually going to be diving into in an upcoming group event that I'm facilitating called She. This is particularly for women. It is very, very limited, where we're going to learn when we turned off that magnetism, that maybe it wasn't safe for you, or maybe you stopped believing in yourself. And for me, that took me all the way back to when I was only 12. These memories showed up of the tender age of 12 when I started to see things change, how I felt, and I started to make myself very, very small. And we're going to heal that, right? Is it any wonder that women feel like no matter what they do, it's not right, it's not enough, it's too much, it's too little, all within this masculine energy, action-driven world that we're living in. But that deep, feminine, wise part of you has been quietly living inside of you, waiting for you to return to her. And we're going to do the deep inner healing work to reconnect you with her, that part of you that was always meant to lead you. This is what it looks like authentically to walk into a room with your belonging intact, able to hold your own happiness, your own value, your own success, your own wisdom, your own gratitude, because you can navigate it all. This is so deeply important right now. This feels like freedom. And if there's one thing I hear repeatedly from my clients is that the way that the world is right now, they do not feel free. They do not feel like it's available to them. And when we feel free, when we create that for ourselves, we bring the best of us to all that we do and everyone we do it for. I truly believe, this is a big statement, but I truly believe it. I believe that women are going to change this world. In fact, I think we have to. And I myself personally, I'm quite tired of seeing old white men bring us to war over and over and over again. Reconnection to the divine power within you is how we learn to live outside the rules, creating the lives that we're dreaming of, that you already know inside what you want. And because you want it, there's a resonance for it. There is already an energy signature of it that it's yours. But how you bring that through requires you to heal those places and those incidents inside where you stopped believing in yourself, where it became too scary for you to be all of you. And it was contingent on other people's thoughts and feelings, right? Those feelings of unworthiness or not good enough or anger or resentment, comparison, competition, defeat, any of those feelings, whenever we feel them, that critical self-judgment, it's like an act of war within ourselves. Our mental, emotional, and physical well-being are affected by this. How we show up in the world and how the world shows up for us, our perception of the world changes dramatically. And that needs to be healed. Because when we're at war with ourselves, we're at war with the world. And then the world is continuously at war. And collectively, that's what we keep manifesting. That's what we're watching. But women have extraordinary things within them, incredible abilities and connections and feminine energy. And there's a part of you, she knows the way. So this is going to be very, very limited. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. It's on the website. As always, it's such a pleasure to be here with everyone. Thank you for your time, for your energy. If I can help you in any way as a clinical hypnotherapist with your life, I would be honored to do so. I wish you a beautiful, beautiful May. Thank you. I'll see you again next month. Bye for now.
Thanks, Meg. That's awesome. I tell you, the way the different things all mesh together with things that the group said and her approach through hypnotherapy and so forth is just magical. I love the part about micro impressions. That's just very magical. That's kind of what we call the photo memory. So yeah, anyway, wonderful. Thank you, Meg, for being there. I happen to have a very dear friend of mine ready to go here. This is Kathy Moran. Kathy has written a book, as we mentioned earlier, called The Magic Heart of Trees. And I want to ask her some questions about this. So let's bring Kathy in. Make sure we can hear her okay. Hi, Kathy. How you doing?
Hi. Hello. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well. Good to see you. Yeah, you look marvelous.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, good. All right. So tell me a little bit about what prompted this book. This is incredible.
Well, the idea for this book actually came from a light master class about 4 years ago. I was in the chat room with Meg and Nick, and Steve did a channel on the esoteric nature of trees. And as I'm listening to it, I just got more and more excited, and I was just like, well, I've had experiences like this. I've experienced this. This is so great. And in my excitement, I just typed in the chat room, which is how we communicate to make sure everything's going smoothly in the class. And I just typed in, I've had these experiences. And Steve just drive by says, you should write a book. And I was just like, what? Write a book? And the idea of it seemed daunting, and I just sort of let that sit for a bit. And then we went on lockdown for COVID, and I spent some time walking and being with the trees, and not some time, a lot of time. And one day I came back from the walk, and I just sat down, and I just started writing. And that first bit that I wrote actually is the epilogue. It got moved to the epilogue part of the book. So, but all along, I really just put one foot in front of another, and I suddenly had a structure for it, and it was literally one step at a time, and that was my process with it, because it seemed completely daunting. So, but here it is.
Amazing.
And yeah, and
Absolutely
I'm
amazing.
really proud of it. So
You should be.
yeah.
You absolutely should be. And to be clear, what I
Mhm.
told you in that chat room was that you were channeling. And you said, "Who? Me? Channeling?" I go, "Yeah, So anyway, I thought it was incredible. So congratulations on the book. I got a couple questions. I want to know about. I want to know. Let's see, what page is it? 33. I want to know about
Okay.
that picture with Merlin. Tell me about this tree. This just immediately drew my attention here. She's got a whole thing about the magic of the Merlin tree.
So the story is, I'll kind of short size it a little bit, but the story is that I lived in Florida at the time, and I've had experiences with trees throughout my life at different periods. And there was this tree that was right outside of our window in Florida, outside the living room window, and the way it was structured, the house, it was like when you were sitting in the living room with the couch against the window, this long window, it felt like you were sitting underneath the tree. And I grew to have the most amazing relationship with this beautiful being. And one day there was like this really intense thunderstorm, and I said, I would give anything if I could see your spirit. And I no sooner thought that than there was this burst of lightning that went right against the tree, and right down the center, I saw the spirit of the tree. And
Incredible.
I could make out a tiny like cone hat in the middle, and I was just awed. And so my relationship with this tree grew. And then another day, and this is where the Merlin part comes in, I was just walking through the living room, and you want to talk about a lot of the scattershot exercises that we do in Lightmaster. I get it, because as I was walking parallel to the tree, and it was about dusk, I saw out of the corner of my eye the spirit of the tree walking. It was outside of the tree, and it was walking right into the trunk of the tree, like merging with it. And I was like, wow. And it was one of those things where if you turned to look, you wouldn't see it. So I sat there with it, and it looked like a wizard. This, mind you, was before I even knew of Steve. I had never listened to any classes. I didn't know about M, or, I mean, any of that. So all of a sudden, it just pops into my head, Merlin. And I was like, the tree was giving me its name. And I knew that it was a very, very magical being. And we just continued to have this beautiful relationship. And when it came time for me to leave, to move from that house, and I actually moved to North Carolina, I left a tiny piece of jewelry I had as a gift to the tree, and I just buried it at the foot of it. The next day, I went out there, and there, right by the trunk, was another piece of jewelry I had not seen in years. And it wasn't the one I left. There's no possible way that I could have not seen this before. It just isn't. And as soon as I saw it, I just got chills up me, and I just knew that this was the tree's parting gift. And so that's how that chapter came to be born, and it's called Merlin the Tree Wizard because that was that tree.
Awesome. Incredible. Wonderful. Well, congratulations on it. I know what that's like to have things speak to you as you walk through the house. That's part of why we do some of those exercises in Lightmaster every week when we come together. Yeah, absolutely. So, excellent. Tell me, I know you've been doing some book signings. I know on a local basis you've been doing. Tell me how other people can reach this.
Okay. Yeah, it's available on Amazon in both the paperback copy and also on Kindle. You do have to make sure you spell it right because the algorithm won't bring it up otherwise. And it's Magikal, Heart of Trees. And yes, you can get it there.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations, my dear. I think it's absolutely magical. You've followed your passion and you listened. How nice. Well, most of us don't. We go, oh, I'm making this up or something else, and here it is, and you put some energy behind it. So, yeah, absolutely
and
incredible.
I have to say, everything with this book, I know this was meant to be born into the world because the right people at the right time showed up to help me when I needed it, and it was definitely like just one step in front of the other. And I just want to let anybody out there who might be, thinking that they have an idea and and they're maybe afraid, just take that first step, just that first step. And then it's like, before you know it, the next step is there, and then the next, until it's there. And
overcoming
it's
inertia in that first step is the biggest challenge many times. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, good.
So
okay. So I'm going to invite you to do something.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of space here in the VirtualLight Broadcast, but next month, I'd like you to do a short segment on trees. Tell us some of the magic you've experienced, and we'll make it part of next month's broadcast here at VirtualLight. Will you do that?
I would love and be honored to do that.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, hon.
Yes.
Well,
Right.
it's a pleasure. Congratulations again. I'm so proud of you. It's very magical in many ways. So excellent job. So is this available in bookstores yet?
No, it's not right now. I'm kind of taking that, piece by piece, but you can get it on Amazon.
There's something that I can help you with that. We'll talk afterwards because there's a place where you can easily do that. So yeah, we'll work with that. Yeah, good
Thank
deal.
you.
Well, congratulations again, hon, and absolutely, you are beaming. So you are the magic here. So congratulations again. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, good. Welcome. So, okay, today I'm going to go right into the channel because the group's just pouring so much into me. I will tell you, for you light masters, we're going to continue on this. Yesterday, I did a whole segment on this. The whole entire class was on this. There's so much to cover here that I'm only going to be able to give you little pieces of what is happening right now. We'll try to get the backstory going in different ways to be able to work with that. We're also making some other moves I will tell you about We've started a podcast. I'm going to be doing that every 2 weeks. As I mentioned, on top of that, the park bench is coming. So I'll just plant that seed. We'll talk about that when we're ready to make some announcements. But park bench will be an experience for you, I'm sure. We'll be doing another event also in Leuven, Belgium, coming up for those of you who weren't able to be there at the human angel activation. This next one's going to be called Practical Magic. We've got so many fun things to be able to do, and new events and new exercises that the group wants to do. But this was absolutely incredible. And thank you all for being there. Those of you who were there, probably 1/3 Light Masters. Absolutely magical. That's one of the first things I do when I walk in the room. Okay, how many of you are Light Masters? So everybody else can see it too. And if anybody has any questions, they can approach the Light Masters and kind of work with that. But anyway, that was a magical time. So with that, I'm going to excuse myself for just a second and bring in the group here in just a second. Asbab, everybody. Greetings from home, dear ones. We welcome you this day. It's a magical time to be on planet Earth. And we have made sure that all the important things were in place. And there you are, the important things. The aspects of what you are starting to bring to this planet are magical. This day, we'll try to cover some of the more important events that are unfolding as we speak. One of them that we talk about happens to be stargates. Now, there is all sorts of science fiction about stargates and what they truly are. We have used that word from your science fiction, for we actually have no words for them in those ways. What your science has called them before is wormholes, ways of going through something very quickly and appearing on the other side almost instantaneously. Now, in order to fully understand what is taking place, let us take you back and give you just a little bit of history of planet Earth and the human species. For this is a magical time. Now, as we mentioned, dear ones, you are beings of the universe. You have incarnated in various forms in different places throughout the universe many times. Some of you are experts at this. Some of you are actually troubleshooters that were sent to different places that were having challenges, and you had special wisdom about how to work with that. We tell you before that many of you have traveled 300 years back from the future to be here at this exact moment. And we know that you do not have memories of that per se, but know that you are on time and you're in the perfect place. The perfect junction of time and space. So with that, we'll tell you that much of your history has not been recorded in the ways that you would think. The reality is that your history was recorded, but it was also erased. As many times, humans try to control other humans by telling stories, by making things up, by consolidating things. And back in the early days of humanity, well, I tell you, humanity goes back much further than you think, but basically around the time of Christ and after that, a lot of things started shifting in very big ways. And there was challenge because there were so many diverse ways and belief systems, and some of your rulers tried to bring them together, and unfortunately actually erased many of the historical writings that preceded back thousands of years. Almost 6,000 years BCE, there was a lot of things going on. And the human animal themselves, yourselves, were actually very young, very immature, if you will, because you had been created over and again. The seeds were planted on planet Earth. Now, with this, we've told you before, there were 6 parental races that came together to form the planet. This is after you had been on Mars and actually had a fairly long reign there at that point. But Mars started losing its ionosphere and had lost its magnetic shield, the magnetosphere, and was starting to not support life. That's pretty much the way it is today. However, you're there and you will discover different aspects of your own imprints on that planet at some point. You'll find the remnants of water and the evidence that water was once there first. And eventually, you'll find remnants that you left. And we say the large you, humanity. Now, when that took place, you had to start over. And these 6 parental races came together and agreed and basically made you in their image. And it began all over again. But in the beginnings, much like a child in human form, you will find that you had difficulties awakening from the dream. You were young, you were immature, and as such, you had caretakers. But this was to be the planet of free choice. So at that point, all 6 of your parental races basically withdrew and allowed it to grow on its own. At a certain point, dear ones, we tell you that was taken over. You had one of those 6 parental races, a small fraction. This is almost as if we could say humans did something. Well, there's a lot of humans on planet Earth. There's 8 billion of you. So it's difficult to say that any one of you, all of you did the same thing. And the same was true with this. Now you're trying to decide, where are we talking about? Are we talking about Palladians? Are we talking about Syrians? Well, let us simply say that you don't understand it all yet. And many of these are right beside you, but vibrating in a different frequency, so very difficult for you to even perceive. However, all of them knew how to move between dimensions. And that's how they started this whole game on planet Earth. So when they were coming back, they came back and tried to guide humans. One faction came back, kind of the renegades, if you will. And they came over and were basically going to guide humans. They were going to take care of you, and did. And they gave you specific rules, specific guidelines that you were not to violate. Well, you violated them. One of them was that you were not to procreate. Well, this is actually showing up in your Bibles as the story of the Garden of Eden. For you were truly in a place where you were well taken care of. But we tell you, if you want to say that Eve bit the apple, good for Eve. The feminine empowerment started taking power in many ways. And it was very magical to see. And yet you were cast out of the garden, so to speak. So there's many of these stories that actually predate and have been repeated and repeated and repeated and updated in some areas. So if you understand that you are creator beings, you can see this in a different light. Now, with that, you had some of these that were written down, because you do have some evidence of these stories, even going back 6,000 years BCE. The Sumerians were one of the peoples that started writing these down and taking them down. And they referred to the sky people over and over and again. The sky people, they gave a name to, which was Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, of course, only means people from the sky. So it was an interesting part. But at a certain point, humans started to take their power. They started to awaken from the dream. They started to mature as a humanity. And they took care of themselves quite well. And at one point, the Anunnaki left. And were resigned to leave the whole claim of planet of free choice to once again resolve themselves to the real opportunities of free choice and the evolution on a natural basis. So with this going on, there was much energy around it. And you evolved and you evolved and you evolved. And many of these stories have been rewritten, have been incorporated in many different ways. That's not the important part. Now that we've given you a little background about this, and by the way, there are only 4 of your parental races left in existence. But everything on your side of the veil has a beginning and an end. It is finite in nature. And 2 of those have now left and ceased existence. But they're working with you from the other side of the veil. For in truth, all of you are spirits, infinitely gathering wisdom on your journey. Now with that, you have some events taking place this day. The reality is that you have a beautiful experiment, a scientific experiment that has been going on for quite some time. It began on the east coast of the United States, building a small particle accelerator where you could take small particles and send them in a circle and speed them up at incredible rates and crash them into each other, which allowed you to study the pieces that were left. They were called particle accelerators. And then after that, you built a rather large one, which exists today. This is on the in between both, it's near Geneva, Switzerland, but it goes underground. It's almost 100 meters underground, and it's called the LCH, the Large Hadron Collider. The LCH, also run by a company or a group actually called CERN, C-E-R-N, have done incredible things and found and discovered many opportunities of understanding your world. They've understood quarks. They've understood the many quarks. They've understood all sorts of things. They've discovered the Higgs boson, which before that was simply a theory. Incredible energies that have come from this. Now, this is a rather large circle, much, much larger than you had on the east coast of the United States. And for a long time, you were doing these experiments. And then it was put down for a while. Repairs, upgrades, different things that were taking place. It went back online on the 22nd of April, just a short time ago. And during that time, you now have new capabilities with this. Now, the other aspect about this is that when you speed these things up close to the speed of light, you send out radiation. You send out a type of energy in waves that you're unfamiliar with. We can tell you that you know about magnetic waves, you know about sound waves. Everything on your side of the veil travels in waves. Your light waves, everything that you're seeing right now is all approaching you in different waves. And the frequency of those waves determine whether this color is blue or those colors of that is green and so forth. Now, there are many waves that you're unfamiliar with. So we tell you that this Large Hadron Collider is now sending out a signal into the universe, which has attracted a lot of attention thus far. But now with the upgrades, it's a little bit different. And it's opened some opportunities. Now, with that, we'll share with you a little bit more about that. Is it wrong? Is there something to... No, please understand, you are right on target. But with this, what has taken place now, you do not understand all the waves that exist there. You might be aware that of the universe, of all the things in the universe, roughly 92% of it is what the scientists are calling dark energy, dark matter, which simply means they don't know what it is. It too travels in waves. So there are many aspects of this that leave and are radiating from planet Earth in different ways that you're unaware of. Now, one of the things that has taken place previously, before this was shut down, was that when it came back online before, it created a harmonic that affected the magnetosphere of Earth. The magnetosphere of Earth is very much like a large torus. It basically is moving all around you in different directions, and energies opened up between these lines of this torus. Well, the magnetosphere is what protects you from all the radiation from the sun, all the harmful effects that would work with you, and it actually creates the ionosphere for you. So in these things that are taking place, you had some gaps. Now, you always have gaps in this. It's a moving object, and yet the gap stayed open for a very long time. That had not happened before. Now that the Large Hadron Collider has begun again and started in a different way, everyone is watching the magnetosphere of Earth, and will tell you it will open up and it will change, but it will not be harmful. There is nothing to fear here. But what we also tell you is you now have 4 new stargates on Earth. Wormholes, if you wish. Many of you are aware that we have talked before about the guardians of the vortex. Sometimes you have a very sacred place in your own backyard or down the street in the park or someplace where there's a beautiful waterfall that just stirs your heart. Or in the case of the person who was just here, the trees that speak to you. Those can be vortices, which are simply swirling energy. But over time, they can turn into a portal. Well, you now have 4 brand new large portals that are reacting to the Large Hadron Collider that has begun again. They are open. They will stay open for a time. What does that mean? Well, in truth, it means that you have a wormhole, and you will see some of your parental races returning. Now, many of them have been here all along, well undercover, and of course they have the capabilities of vibrating at a different rate which you cannot interact with. However, now that may change. You have opportunities to find these. What do they look like? How do you do that? Well, there's much energy around that you'll have to discover, for that is on your side of the veil, not ours. We can see them very clearly. And although they are energetic, so it's not necessarily about a physical location, but you can find them. When you find them, what do you do with them? Well, we'll ask you not to step into them, because finding your way back might be a little challenging in the beginning. But we can tell you that beings will be coming through there. So does that mean that someday you're going to be watching a waterfall and suddenly a person will walk out of there? No, keep in mind they have the capabilities of traveling dimensionally and well hidden from your own view. But we also tell you that this can change. You can nurture these opportunities. And when you do, you will see great things happen. Celebrate this opportunity, dear ones. Look for these sacred spaces. Send your love into this opportunity. Send your love into these vortices when you see them. If you find one of the 4, it will be very magical for you. Your life will change rather drastically in a positive way. We hope you understand that. It is your true nature that has begun to resurface in many ways. We could not be prouder of what you have done here, and we tell you that there is a reunion underway. It's a beautiful time. Watch for the stargates. Watch for the very magical places. Is it possible for people to just disappear on Earth? Yes, it is, especially now. But understand, it is not harmful. It is simply a change of dimension. You'll start to see some of the other vibrations that you have not perceived before. You are on the verge of actually discovering dark energy and what that's truly about. Know that you're right on time and that we love you dearly. We will tell you more about this in the future. It took quite a lot for us to consolidate this in a very short way. We also tell you that in 2025, there are great plans for doing some very exciting things with the Large Hadron Collider. Watch for them. Many more of these portals will open up at that time. In the meantime, expect a miracle, and we'll help you create it. Dear ones, it's a beautiful time to be here on the planet. And if you experience any fear, reach out and hold each other's hands. That's where the true magic is anyway. Know that you're right on time. It is with the greatest of honor that we ask you to treat each other with respect, nurture one another, and play well together. As the game now steps up, enjoy the journey. Spavo, dear ones, thank you for taking